Oh my God. I can't decide between these two. I'm changing my mind. Okay, I'm changing my mind. I'm changing my mind, everyone. I'm changing my mind. So here it is, people. Premier League predictions time. I love doing this video every single year. I'm a little bit nervous as well. We're just tottering about, aren't we? Thinking everything's fine. Then whoop, there it is. Slapping you around the face. It's the start of the Premier League season and it's Premier League prediction time. We go around in circles time and again, but it is just like starting over here as we put forward our Premier League prediction for another season. I am incredibly excited. I'm going to go through my 1 to 20 or 20 to number 1 when it comes to my Premier League predictions, but here's the twist. I want you guys involved. I always want you guys involved in my content. And actually, there's a huge announcement that I will be delivering on this channel Wednesday, 5 p.m. that could change your life for the better. And I truly mean that when I say it. So make sure you subscribe. The other thing that's really important is that I want you to go to the description. I want you to download the absolutely free League Predictor app. And I want you to join my league and put forward your 20 to 1 or 1 to 20 in my league. The code is there right now. I've put my championship predictions in there as well. You can go check out my championship predictions on the channel as well. So we can find out who knows ball the best by the end of the season. So download the app. There's already 1,000 people in there, but you could be number 1. But if you don't shoot, you don't score. So go get involved right now. Right, let's begin with those dreaded bottom 3 positions. Okay, in 20th spot, I'm going to have to go with Sheffield United. I just can't see the goals. I can't see any goals when I look at the squad there. The strikers that are there at the moment, look, okay, there might be some change when it comes to the last few weeks of the season, but regardless, I just don't see them getting the ball through the thirds well enough in the striking position. It feels very weak, and Ndiaye was going to be so important for them, so to lose him, it's just absolutely huge. I think they'll gently get beaten down, and I also think in terms of the expectations of the club, of the fans, and that kind of momentum that comes when you're like, wow, we're in the Premier League. For Sheffield United, it feels a lot more like Norwich City when they had that second return because, again, there hasn't been the money spent to give them a chance. In the last 5 years, only Brentford, in terms of newly promoted teams, have stayed up when they've spent less than £50 million. And Sheffield United, currently at the time of recording, are well off that mark. And so I just can't see it. I really can't. There's not much more I can say than that. In 19th spot, again, I hate this, but I'm going to go with Luton Town. I just don't think, regardless of the fact that I think they will pull up a couple of trees here, I think they'll have a few moments, I think they will get beaten down in time. I think maybe they might still be in the running when it comes to January, February, but I can't see them getting past the 30-point mark. I don't think there's enough quality in the side, and I think they know that themselves. I think they're going for the sum of the parts strategy, which I don't think is a bad idea. I think Giles is a great signing in terms of hurting teams in terms of set pieces, but I still think they'll get popped off the pitch a little bit by a few teams because they just don't have that quality there, and I think they will get sort of ground down as the season progresses. They'll give it a bloody good go, and they'll be in a much stronger position going into the Championship next season, but I just can't see that miracle survival this year, but I hope I'm wrong. Now, what's really interesting to me this season is I'm seeing real pairings of teams that I'm struggling to kind of put into different positions. So in terms of the teams down the bottom, I think there's a few that you could sort of chuck down there. And to be honest, as I look at it, really, from 10th spot downwards, any of those teams could get relegated this season. Like, seriously, they could all get relegated. But in terms of how I'm feeling about the squads that they have, there's a few that are right down the bottom, and 2 specifically, and when it comes to this final position, it's Everton and it's Wolves. And I'm really struggling between the 2. I think it's going to be Wolves. The reason I think it's going to be Wolves is I think that the manager is as talented as they come, but I don't think he's happy, and I don't think he will be there for very long. I do not see him being the manager in January. Whereas I think differently, the expectations for Everton fans, they know they're in a dogfight. They know they need to be resolute. They know they're going to be in the bottom 6, 7, or that's certainly the expectations this year. And I think with Sean Dyche, he's putting together a squad and a team there that I think he knows what he's going to get from them. The fans understand that as well. They'll be hard to break down. And I see Sean Dyche getting past that dreaded October and that dreaded January this year. I actually think Everton, it might be one where they drop down to 17th in the last few weeks of the season because they're safe. But Wolves, I can't see them not conceding more goals this year because they look very thin in terms of their back line. I don't see the creation there, and there hasn't been the creation there in previous seasons as well. And I think the big thing that Lopetegui offered was certainly points, but those points were 1-0 victories. So if you can't get a clean sheet, you're not going to get yourself a victory. And with the players that they've lost, I just can't get past it. And I think Wolves will be the third team to go down this year. 16th spot, and this is a last minute change for me. So I might get it wrong, and I might have got it wrong before, so I might get it right. Result, I'm going to go with Nottingham Forest. Now, I feel like I'm starting to see that identity of what I understand Nottingham Forest to be. I still think there's a real over-reliance on Morgan Gibbs-White. I think that's okay because he's going to be there. He's involved in 46% of the goals for Nottingham Forest last season. That's more than anyone in the Premier League. And I think he's going to go on and have an absolutely fantastic season. And you've got a lot of players in that Nottingham Forest squad that are kind of going into their second season in the Premier League because there was such an influx of players last year. I back Cooper as well to find a way to be difficult to beat at times, but also get themselves some points. And in that front three, if Johnson stays, and I was chatting to someone the other day who I think is in the know, and she was suggesting that Johnson will be staying at the club. You've got some interesting forward players there in Alanga, Johnson, Gibbs-White, Awani as well. Enough, I think, to make them a solid mid-table side this season. The chance creation is still a massive problem in terms of sort of working the ball up the pitch, and that led to that over-reliance on Awani, on Brennan Johnson, and on Morgan Gibbs-White, kind of on the counter-attack. But I think they'll get better. I believe in Cooper. I think he will develop them, and I think he will stick around for the whole season because the Nottingham Forest fans love him, and I think it'll be another successful season by being in the Premier League for another one. Ola Aina has come in at left back as well. I really like him as a signing, really steady player. In 15th spot, I'm going with Fulham to drop down a little bit. In terms of their numbers, they were running very hot last season, but I do think there is a lot of quality in that Fulham side. More so, actually, as sort of time progresses. I think I did a video the other week talking about the quality of different teams, and I think overall, the depth is maybe not there, but that starting 11 and that spine for Fulham, I think, is actually really, really strong. As I'm looking at the squad here, I have some concerns. I think Mitrovic could still be on his way out, despite what's happened so far. There could be a final push in the last few weeks of the season. Regardless, he's kind of not very happy at this moment in time. Silva, you always feel like he could move, but I think he's shown that he wants to be a part of this Fulham project, which I think is great. And of course, if they have a problem with injuries or they don't run as hot as they did last season, I expect a little bit of a drop-off. But I also think they have a little bit of money there to spend as well. So all in all, I think they'll be absolutely fine again. I think they'll have some great results. I think they'll have some disappointing runs of games as well. So that's why I'm putting Fulham in 15th spot. Just above Fulham, I've got Crystal Palace. Now, I have similar concerns with Crystal Palace as I do with Fulham. I like the starting 11. I quite like the spine. I think there's a platform there for Eze to thrive, and Elise as well. At the time of recording, there is a lot of interest, Man City and Chelsea, to go and get Elise from Crystal Palace. I think he's got a release clause, supposedly, of 35 million. So by the time this video comes out, he may well have even gone. And if he has, that is a problem. But I would imagine that Crystal Palace would be ready for this scenario, and they'll be ready to utilise those funds to go and get a player. Again, regardless of that, you've got a player that is Premier League proven right now that you're going to have to replace with someone, and that's going to either cost, or you're going to have to go with potential like they are with someone like França. I really like França. I think he's going to be a really important player for them. And I think if Elise does stay, I think you've got an exciting team there, and I think you could have a bit more fun, especially with Hodgson at the helm, carrying on from last season in that same vein. And I think that's why I've put them up a little bit higher than Fulham this season. But with Elise, I'm putting Palace in 14th spot. 13th, Brentford. A bit of a drop off. Don't know why I did that twice. Ivan Toney not being in the team obviously is a problem, because you want a great player. He is superb, but he will be back. When he comes back, he will inevitably start scoring goals, and that will add a new option to Brentford, and I think they were going to evolve anyway. I think I would have put them down in my rankings or in my table anyway, because I think there's going to be some growing pains here. I think Brentford are going to look to play 4 at the back a little bit more often. They have done that a lot in their pre-season games. I think they're still in those big games, they'll look and play back 3 and be solid, because that worked brilliantly against those top 6, 7, 8 sides, and I think that will continue. But again, they are a squad that is really well put together, good pros, great manager. I think Mbeumo is going to have a big season. Wissa is going to have a bigger season and more minutes this year. Keane Lewis-Potter has been really good in pre-season from the reports that I've heard as well, and Sade as well. So I think there'll be a very different Brentford side, but I think by the time that we get to May, they'll be in a solid position and in 13th. In 12th spot, I'm going to go for the first of two shocks, probably, for a lot of casual Premier League fans. I'm going to go for Burnley. Burnley in 12th position, obviously newly promoted, but absolutely tore up the division last year. Looked fantastic in possession. They won't have as much possession. Could even go to a 4-4-2 away from this 4-2-3-1 that they have played for the bulk of last season. Could play two up front as well. But they spend that little bit of money. As I said, £50 million or more you kind of need to spend to give yourself a chance in the Premier League, because there is that gap there. And they've gone and done that. I also think they will go and be able to utilise the contacts of Vincent Kompany with a progressive club and team and style of play that will attract some really good players. So I still think there's work to be done and players to come in. So I think that the squad will get better between now and the end of the transfer window. And I think there'll be a really excited energy at Turf Moor when it comes to their fan base as well. So that's where it's a little bit different to them and Sheffield United. So those ingredients of spending that little bit of money, exciting manager, new style of play, and Burnley fans being excited about what they're going to see this year will all mix together, mesh together, and give Burnley a cracking season. And they will finish in 12th, in my opinion. Second shock for you, 11th spot, Bournemouth. I think Bournemouth are going to have a really great season and be one of the surprises this year. I think everyone would expect that second season syndrome, but what I think is different here, which is odd, is that you've got a manager that did really well in Gary O'Neill, and he's kind of gone, and you've brought in a new manager whilst things are kind of going well. Iraola is going to get them pressing. I think they're going to be incredibly fit. They'll get at the opposition. They've got a physical squad as it is. I'm slightly concerned about the back line still. I'm slightly concerned about them leaking too many goals. But I think in the wide positions in particular, the depth is really there. Tavernier, Kluivert, Ouattara, all exciting players. Brooks is back. That's a brand new signing really for me as well. Semenyo as well. Billing is only going to get better, I think, and be more useful for the team. Solanke as well. Both had great seasons last year. I think Iraola is going to get a lot from this team, and I think Bournemouth are going to be just fine. 11th spot. Now, this might be a shock for some people. I've gone for West Ham in 10th spot. Now, I was chatting to Nicky from West Ham Fan TV the other day, and he thinks they're going down. That feels a bit harsh, and I am going to contradict myself, because I think Europe and European football does have a big effect. But I also think West Ham were better than they were last season, if that makes sense. To lose all the games that they lost, I don't think that is the mean, if you know what I mean. I think that was just one bad season. I think David Moyes will recover from this. There has been grumblings in terms of arguments, supposedly, in terms of the overall structure at West Ham. But the thing that I think I'm sort of sticking with here is, yes, you've lost that Declan Rice player, but you've also gained that Declan Rice money, and you lost all those games with Declan Rice in the team anyway last year. The Europa League, not taking a backward seat, but I think it could be one where they might not actually make it that far this year. Who knows? But they will be able to spend that money. I do expect them to go and make those reinforcements, and I expect them to have a better season in terms of the percentages of a football game than they did last year. Jarrod Bowen, I think, is going to have a really big season for them, and I think they'll be just fine. I think they'll recover. I think they'll find their footing again, and I think they'll finish 10th. But I could be hugely wrong on this one. Not totally sure. Right, top 9. Now, the top 9, literally every team there could finish in the top 4. Top 9. And so I think that needs to be remembered when it comes to this season. I think there'll still be a lot of odd scorelines this year, and I think that's a wonderful thing, obviously. In 9th spot, and all of the, God, it's all gut calls now, and you kind of have to settle on a spot. I'm going to put Brighton in 9th. I fear I'm doing the thing where, well, Brighton aren't as big as these other clubs, and therefore I'm going to put them a little bit lower. They have so much more depth than we probably give them credit for, because some of these players, again, kind of don't have the pedigree that we generally expect. They could easily prove me wrong here. But I think with possibly that gentle lack of quality in comparison to the other guys, because you haven't been able to spend as much. Again, this is a dangerous thing when you think of the recruitment of Brighton. They've been that special for so long. And Europa League football, not Europa Conference League football, Europa League football, that could maybe drain them somewhat. You haven't got Levi Colwill in this squad at all either, and I think that's a massive loss for them as well. They'll still win games, they'll still entertain, they'll still bring through players that we're going to be really excited for, and they have a lot of depth up front in particular. I'm intrigued to see players like Undav. How many goals is he going to score this year? João Pedro, how many goals is he going to score this year? And again, in terms of like the reinforcements of Milner's really exciting. Dahoud is really exciting as well. So I think they'll have a great season. They could easily win the Europa League for me. But I think altogether, I'm going to put the bottom of this really solid, strong 9-team bracket. Focus and fatigue. that's the big one for my next pick. And again, I think there is a sort of mini bracket of 4 teams. I would go Brighton, I would go Newcastle United, Tottenham and Aston Villa for those next 4 spots from 9th to 6th. Here's the way that I've put it together. I'm going to put Newcastle in 8th position. And with this, I'm leaning on, like I said, focus and fatigue. I think that as much as the squad is getting better and better, the expectations are getting higher, and also I think that clear focus and that ability to work week on week in the Premier League, focusing on that ability and opportunity to finish in the Champions League places, that focus won't be as strong. Because you have to split it. You have to look at the Champions League and you've got to be dreaming about getting out that Champions League squad. And I think they've got the quality to do that. I also think they've got the quality to be in the top 8 in the league, which I don't think is a massive failure for Newcastle. Success isn't linear. Do you know what I mean? There's going to be growing pains and difficulties along the way. I think it's a really good first 11, and I think there could be a cup competition on the horizon for Newcastle as well, because I think the fans want it, the owners want it. But I think it will hurt the league form somewhat. You might get some injuries there as well. And if you do get some injuries, then it's difficult. Add to that the pressure of Wednesday, Sunday. And I just think Newcastle United won't take their eye off the ball, but I think it will be something that the altitude of which they're in now is going to make life a little bit harder for them. So I'm going to put them in 8th spot. And I also think they've got a few players there that can be injury prone at times, and that could hurt them as well. But time will tell. And I do like the additions of Harvey Barnes. I think Anthony Gordon's only going to get better. I think Tonali will be a good solid player for them as well. And I think they'll have some unbelievable nights at St James's Park in the Champions League. I just think it will affect the Premier League form, and I also think teams will give them a lot more respect this year and they'll look to take a draw. 7th spot, Tottenham. I'm putting Tottenham above Newcastle for a few reasons. Now, again, we don't know what's happening with Harry Kane, but regardless of that, I'm happy to put Tottenham in 7th spot because I think Postecoglou will really freshen up the energy and the feeling around the club. I think they'll concede way too many goals, but I think they'll score a hell of a lot more as well. And you're going to hear me say this a few times, and this is where I said I might contradict myself. Not having European football is going to be so important and helpful to Tottenham. They're going to be able to really ingrain this system, really focus on the opposition. And I think the teams, we've seen this year after year, the teams that have European football, don't have European football more importantly, those teams do better. And again, in terms of the level of that European football, I think that plays a part as well, both in the sort of the feeling of the club, the media narrative, which can bleed into the, the brains and the hearts and the minds of the players themselves as well. So I think that Tottenham will have an enjoyable season, far more enjoyable, and could even have less points than last year, yet somehow be in 7th spot and be quite happy with where they are. In 6th spot, you probably figured it out by now. I think Aston Villa are going to have one hell of a season. The squad building for Aston Villa, I am so impressed with. I can see how Unai Emery wants to play. I don't think they will lose energy. I think they are on that kind of upward curve. And I think with the Conference League, those games should be very winnable for that second string that you've got there. And in terms of that depth, the depth really is there for them. And I also think it suits the development of a lot of the players in the squad. The squad depth is good. The squad depth is strong. And you've got a lot of multifunctional players there. But also the likes of Irabunum, the likes of Archer, those players will get minutes in the Europa Conference League. And that will be a level that they're good enough to, to win games and sort of navigate the two. I think that's going to be really useful for Aston Villa when it comes to their aims for the top 6. Ollie Watkins has to stay fit, so importantly. But Diaby, Buendia, Ramsey, the midfield is strong. The likes of Tielemans coming in there, Douglas Luiz, McGinn, of course, as well. Kamara is constantly slept on. It's a really exciting team. Moreno as well on that left-hand side, bombing up and down. They got the option to go do that on either side and play a sort of bit of an elbow back four. Essentially, it's a back three with 3 centre-backs as well if they need to. I'm really excited about Aston Villa. I think they'll carry on marching on forwards. They'll be able to deal with the European football and they'll finish in 6th. Right, top 5. I'm really struggling with this. And again, we've got some pairings here. So the first bracket, 5th and 4th, I've got Chelsea and Man United, and I keep flip-flopping. Oh my God. I can't decide between these two. I think I'm changing my mind. Okay, I'm changing my mind. I'm changing my mind, everyone. I'm changing my mind. I had Chelsea in 4th, Man United in 5th. So here's the thing I'm really struggling with. Chelsea have no European football, so they have a week to deal with their opponents. That is so important. But when I look at that squad, if things start going badly, there is a lack of leadership there for me. And you have a lot of young people with a lack of experience there. Depth in midfield is also a bit of a concern. They could easily just have good fun each week and like dispatch with different players. And actually, again, sometimes when you have a younger squad, it allows leaders to reveal themselves. And also, exactly what was the problem last year is that you had valuable players who didn't feel valuable. By culling a lot of those players and those older guys, you have a group that might feel exactly that. And under Pochettino, I think could thrive. Man United, I loathe to go against Ten Hag. You have Champions League football. That's going to make life a little bit harder. I think the overall consistency of the quality of the squad, Chelsea's is a little bit better. And the potential is really exciting there. But in terms of... I'm going to go with Man United. I'm going Man United in 4th. Because I think Onana's a massive upgrade in terms of how they're going to play. They're going to play higher up the pitch. They lost 8 away games last year. I don't think that will occur this year. Ten Hag in his second season, totally ingrained in what he wants. That has been delivered to those players pretty quickly, and we saw the results from that. Casemiro and that leadership's there. Bruno Fernandes, as a captain, you look for that leadership there. Højlund coming in. I think Rashford you've got there to play as that replacement striker, which is a bit of a concern of mine because I wonder if Højlund will take a season to acclimatise to that level and that, you know, the size of that shirt. They'll have less time to get ready for those games, obviously, time and again. But actually, you've got a squad there that's dealt with that, be it in the Europa League previously. Champions League is a different step. I'm going Man United. Man United 4th. Man United 4th. Man United 4th. Okay, the next 3 are the best 3 teams in the league for me. You have Man City, you've got Arsenal, you've got Liverpool. Those are the 3 best teams. Do you know what? I'm going to get the league bit out of the way. In top spot, Man City. I think Man City win the league incredibly easily. Here's why. I just don't see them conceding many goals at all. I think their games will be tighter. I think their goal difference might be the same level, but just with a lot less goals conceded. But I just cannot see them conceding many goals this season at all. I don't think they'll do the treble again. I think they'll come unstuck there at some point. But that back line is just outrageous. Rodri, owning the ball. The midfield looks strong as well. I just don't see them conceding many goals. Look, KDB might take a backward step a little bit, but I think they're still going to be good. I don't think they'll be as good or as exciting as they were last year, but I think they'll just be... They could concede less than 15 goals this year, like easily. That's why Man City will win the league. The Liverpools and the Arsenals... Now, it's interesting. You kind of got Chelsea, loads of change there. Man United taking an incremental step up. Arsenal and Liverpool, that's the second one for me, where I've got a team that's kind of changed a lot in Liverpool. Changed a lot. And then you've got Arsenal, who are making those incremental steps. And again, it's one where you can get it easily wrong. I'm going to go with my gut on this one. Arsenal have the Champions League football this year. I think Arteta has almost too many options now, but he's got options that he will need to give them game time, but he'll also need to allow them to get up to speed. And with the amount of games that they're going to play, that's going to be difficult to do on the training ground. In time, I have absolutely no doubt that Arteta will get this Arsenal team to really pushing for a title. And I do think, not to sort of dampen, excitement for the season, I think next season we have ourselves a ding-dong title race. I really do. And I'll say it now. Arsenal, I think, will go very, 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 very deep in the Champions League this year. Maybe even the final. Early shout from me there. But I think there'll be a couple of growing pains in the first half of the season. I think Liverpool will fly out the traps. They're going to score so many goals. Luis Diaz is a new signing. Jota, to a point, is kind of a new signing for a fresh season. Yes, the midfield, there are so many changes, and that makes me nervous about that. In terms of overall changes, Arsenal have got far less and so should have more fluency. But I back Klopp. I do back Klopp to kind of understand what he wants to do. I think Trent's going to have a huge season. And I'll put it out there now. Trent Alexander-Arnold, if Liverpool get close to the title, he might not win it because Haaland might have scored 40 goals and you've got to give it to him. But Trent Alexander-Arnold will be in the conversation for Player of the Year at the end of this season. That is my prediction. I'm going to go with my gut with this one. I think Liverpool's going to score so many goals. I think Núñez is going to score so many goals. And I think that Liverpool will finish in second place. I think they will get that momentum, that excitement from the amount of goals that they are going to score. I think they'll have a couple of games that get frustrated and don't win those games. Or they might even concede a few too many goals and people will get angry about that or whatever. But I think they'll score so many goals that they will hurt a lot of teams, and a lot of teams will be scared before they even walk onto the pitch with the attacking assets that they have, if everyone can stay fit, of course, as well. And with the added expectation, I think now for Arsenal, I think that could weigh on them a little bit. I still think they'll be fine. I still think they'll have a good season. And as I say, I think next season we're moving towards a title race where you have a resurgent Chelsea. You have a Liverpool side who kind of know what they are now and need to make a couple of moves to take them up a notch. Arsenal, I think, aren't going anywhere for the next 5 years when it comes to being in the conversation for a title race. Man City and Man United as well, moving in the right direction as well. Next year's going to be unbelievable, but this year I think Man City will do it pretty easily, and I think Liverpool will finish in second. That of course means Arsenal will finish in third. Sorry, sweet Gunners. But who knows? It is but God's plan. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. Can we get, I'm going to go crazy here, 10,000 likes on this? 10,000 likes. Most importantly, make sure you're subscribed to the channel because there is a huge announcement. I'm going to attempt to do something that I don't think anyone's done in the YouTube space before, and it affects you. So subscribe to the channel and do not miss the video that comes out Wednesday, 5 PM. It's important. Get your predictions in. Links in the description for the League Predictor app as well. Good luck, people.